Hey all, Tapes here, back playing some more Planet Zoo and back in Tiguidou Zoo for episode 22. So this is the raccoons coming to the night house. So there's a few different bits and pieces going on this one, as you're seeing at the beginning here. Just going to show you some little detailed areas that I'm adding. So yeah, these are all around the ideas of animals being both nocturnal but also being crepuscular. So sleeping in that kind of daylight to twilight or daylight to night transition, which is twilight. So yeah, and then I thought I'd just add these bunch of little education areas. We'll jump into the speed build in a second, but and you'll see all these as we go through the real-time tour. But yeah, just wanted to kind of show you those. Largely this episode is going to focus around the creation of a slightly crazy concept that I decided to go with for the raccoons. So you see some of this when we do the speed build, but I really decided what I ended up with. If you've seen the previous two episodes, the Wombat episode, the Red Fox episode, you'll have seen that this is an area with a bunch of little spaces, and I wanted to make it feel like there were animals both kind of all over in these little tanks, basically scattered all over this building. And the problem I had was trying to get this center space. So this like center space, otherwise it was going to end up feeling like a bit of a cavern. But I had to find a way of getting the animals into it, and I decided I wanted to have the raccoons be able to transition into that middle space. And as like most things, when I build it, there isn't usually like a master plan. I know a number of builders, I know there's a lot of really, really talented builders across the community that have a really clear picture of what they're doing. I tend to find it so much more fun if I just kind of organically let it happen. So this middle space here that you're seeing me building in now, you see me kind of weirdly adding some concrete. Now I sort of came across this idea. I was thinking about both the red foxes and the raccoons being an animal that has like overlapping behaviours now with both. It's kind of they're more kind of natural existence, but the fact that they've adapted to like an urban landscape encroaching upon them. So I decided I wanted this to feel like it was a little exhibit, an extension of the exhibit that talks to that point. So what you see me doing here is creating like a weird little inside-outside space. So that's a curb, there's a gutter, I'm laying some points down, doing a bit of curbing, trying to create like a fake road. The sort of thing, I'm not sure you'd ever actually see this in a zoo, but yeah, it's supposed to be representing like a more of an urban landscape for the animals. So what you saw me building right at the beginning there for the raccoons was a tunnel. So they have a means to get from both their outside space, but also their inside outside space, if that makes any sense, into this kind of urban bit. So they go for it via the tunnel, and it actually works out really well. It took me a while. The animals, one of the big problems that I had when trying to incorporate the raccoons into this building was that I had built a large portion of the building using climbable wooden pieces. If you remember from the previous episodes, a lot of it is kind of log lined, and of course the raccoons could just climb their way through that. It's one of the problems that the game has always had, is that if you have things that are climbable close to the edge of the barrier, the animal tends to just climb straight through it. Even if they're set to kind of no escape, they'll be able to just climb up on top of the building or do all sorts of crazy things. I have learned that experience from when I was working with the Japanese macaques in the previous episodes. So yeah, I needed to kind of refactor a whole big chunk of the building. I think I've got away with it. I'll show you this as we do the real-time tour, but what I ended up doing was making a big section of the back of the building concrete so they can't get into it. So yeah, here's this kind of inside courtyard space, and really the spark of this idea started well, both we've been thinking about the red foxes and the raccoons, but also, I can't remember, in a recent patch, the Frontier introduced the concept of animals being able to escape and knock over bins. And my experiences of foxes, for example, and I can imagine people that live in areas where there are raccoons, experience these animals quite often in a kind of nuisance setting where they've knocked over your bin or they've taken all the rubbish out of a trash bin. So that was kind of one of a little catalyst of an idea, and that combined with trying to use this really small inside space. So you've seen me kind of cheat in there, put the bin in, put the bench in, put a bit of path in order to do that, and then deleted the path. This is me creating some rubbish just to make it look like the bin's been knocked over. I did try for ages to actually get the raccoons to knock over the bin. It didn't seem to be a thing that they can do. I'm not sure how that mechanic works. If one of you guys in the comment section knows how that mechanic works, then please do share, because I was really keen to try and get there's hours and hours and hours of me trying to get the animals to escape and then knock over a bin. And I decided in the long term that I wasn't even entirely sure that if they knocked over the bin, whether when I reloaded the zoo, whether that bin would get reset back up to its upright position. So I ended up just kind of going, I'm just going to give up on the fact that the bin isn't knocked over. So this is supposed to feel a little bit like a courtyard between buildings. It's got a bit of a slightly kind of French Canadian feel to it that I was going for, based on the setting that where we are. And so, yeah, there's this just like, I don't know, I was just trying to jam as many things into this little space that made them feel like that we were outside. So this is like a little cafe, a little front for a cafe. And I've used the emissive one-way glass there. So what you get in that is that actually that's a viewing window where the guests can look through from the other side into this space. But when you're looking at that from the inside, or from the other side, you can't see the guests. So it feels like it's supposed to be kind of like an internal space of a shop. Again, it's a bit of a crazy concept. It took me a long time to get the animals to actually come into this. If you've built any of these kind of connected habitats where you've got like a climbable piece connecting them, sometimes the game is a bit kind of eccentric about how it calculates the traversable space and things. So there is this, and you're actually mostly only seeing this in the speed build, but there's a whole other internal section which looks more like landscape. So I'm going to leave you guys for a minute. We'll be back as ever for the real-time tour immediately after the break, and we'll see all the details in their glory. Back in a sec. Right, welcome back to the tour. So, just starting off outside actually, because this is all starting to come together now. So, if you've missed the previous episodes, you'll have you've seen the foxes and the wombats. So you can see now as well that this is all fenced off. So, as I said in the speed build there, the outside spaces are on their way very soon. So if we push inside. Just wait for our eyes to adjust. I noticed this the other day. There's see that little kind of adjustment? Maybe you won't see that in the video, but it's a little adjustment that happens as the camera comes inside of the building. So yeah, we're losing a few frames here, but hopefully this isn't getting too choppy. So there's the foxes. And there is my Nocturnal. There's the first little view into the raccoons there. And here's the wombats just hanging out in their space doing their thing. And then let's see if we've got any over there. Not quite there yet, but they'll be making their way. Hopefully they'll be making their way inside. So all of this is closed off at the moment. So because it's night time, they're not outside. Although they could be outside in the night. I guess that's the thing. In the daytime they're probably closed in. I guess that makes more sense. So we'll just make our way around there in a second, but we'll wait for some raccoons to come through. But so there's the first of those big kind of education screens. And I have put in a few. I think I put either a memorial sign or some sort of education screen behind this, hoping that the guests will interact with it. But yeah, as I said in the speed build, the gist was that this is about educating people around the difference between nocturnal and crepuscular animals, and this idea that animals sleep in a different way to humans, or lots of animals do sleep in a different way to humans. So yeah, this is typically more the model that humans use. So this monophasic, so sleeping kind of in one big phase. Some animals sleep in these kind of dual phases, so you've got one big and one small, and then there's a whole bunch of animals that sleep shorter stints but multiple times across the day. And from what I've read in the research, it's quite interesting that actually it's often the case that depends on the sort of circumstances that animal's in. And what zoos tend to quite often find is that because the risks and the risk of predators and the availability of food and stuff changes when the animals are brought into captivity, sometimes you see a shift between those. So yeah, I thought that was an interesting little thing to include. Oh, here they are, called creating mischief, creating havoc. So they do they tend to spend quite a lot of time down here. And it was all basically just fill it with some enrichment items and have them all come and play down here. So as you see, I've added this like fire hydrant. It's supposed to feel like it's like a courtyard. The whole thing is supposed to feel like it's a courtyard. Like it's supposed to have a kind of slightly French Canadian feel to it. And just to give another idea, and this concept of the animals having this weird like dual existence now between their natural habitat and the one that how they're interacting and overlapping with us. Yeah, this was really fun actually. So I made this little. I decided this was going to end up being on the floor. Came across this infographic when I was looking up crepuscular animals, and this idea that these animals exist in this kind of twilight zone, so between daytime and proper night. So they're not nocturnal animals, but they tend to spend most of their time in this period where it's getting dark or it's getting light. So you've got kind of sunset to sunrise sort of period. I thought that'd just be a cool way of a fun and cool sort of way of showing it, to do it on the floor. So they're still making havoc down there. So let's head around this way. Something you didn't see actually in the speed build. So I did actually add this kind of little bit of an introduction to this area so that people understand why it's there, and it's talking about the kind of collision between those two, the natural habitat and the man-made habitat. Oh, that's good time when then like crossing over in up the top there. You'll also notice I did add again something I didn't include in the speed build, but I did add a small internal pace for the skunks. So I've just added one skunk in, but again that's got little access door that slides across. That's their outside space out there, which is yet to be complete. And as ever in these builds, that I always try and make sure there's some like levels of realism stuff. So there's no way into that other than through this door. So this is like an implied door goes into the raccoons. So a keeper would have to kind of move between the habitats basically. But that's their inside space. It took me ages to get this to work. As you can see, there's all sorts of like complicated climbing things. It's pretty good. The climbing mechanic's always a little bit janky. You'll find that sometimes things update and then you'll get frustrated that you can't get them to climb in a way that they were doing it before. But yeah, kind of happy with that. So again, some little enrichment bits, little education bit, little sort of implied like resting boxes and sort of snug boxes away for them to hang out and sleep in. I continued that idea of using these pictures in the background just to give it an extra bit of depth. It's a small space. This whole night house is small, so and I'm getting away with giving them these small spaces because I've got outside spaces for them as well. But as ever within Tiguidou, everything's a little bit tight, everything's a bit small. It's a bit smaller than it probably should be as far as the game's concerned, but I think I'm pretty happy with the way it turned out. And then we have a big space, which I think is going to be probably armadillos from the new pack that's coming out very shortly. Let's see if we can catch any of them doing anything. Yeah, so in the next episode, I think I'll probably finish off the armadillo, or build out this armadillo habitat. Potentially some of the outside spaces, or I'm not sure yet. But I might play around with the tour mechanics and stuff like that. So do not forget to like and subscribe. Hope you enjoyed this one, guys. This is nearing the completion of this twilight, of this night house, which is probably one of my favourite parts of Tiguidou. My name is Toves. Do not forget to like and subscribe. Thank you very much for watching, and I shall catch you on the next one. Take it easy.